my job as the national team coach is to support our players and in a number of different ways. And, often, not always, but often the players will come to me when they have some important decisions to take for their careers. And my job is to offer the support and guidance so they can make the most informed decisions for themselves. And of course, it's always disappointing to lose players from the NWSL, but at the same time, it's a wonderful opportunity for Naomi. Of course, I know the club that she's gone to, and I know that playing in the Champions League will be not just a brilliant experience for her, but she's at a point of her career where she felt that was important for her. But um, my job is just to support that. It's the club's decisions if they decide to sell players to Europe. That's nothing to do with us at the national team. But it's great to see that clubs are investing. And if we can see more of that, and then I think we're doing what we ultimately want to do, which is to create a very vibrant, women's football ecosystem. And Naomi is someone who I'm sure will not only thrive, but the fact that she's the most expensive player in the world as a defender, and she's American, is something we should be proud of. And hope that one day she will return to the NWSL to contribute to our domestic game.
And just to follow up that, I am curious of how close of an eye do you keep on youngsters that are playing in the league, kind of like Melanie Barcenas, Kimi Ascanio, and now Trinity Armstrong coming from college to the NWSL.
Well, if you think since I've been in charge, probably overseen, including the recent Futures Camp and WNT camp, probably been exposed to somewhere upward of 60, 70 players. So I think we've already demonstrated that there are opportunities for players. And of course, we started out with the Olympics and have developed looking at the wider NWSL pool. This January, we've been looking at the futures, which is under 23s down. The aforementioned players you just brought up are players that are part of that future plan, but they have to still develop as professionals first on a regular basis. It's not as straightforward to just perform at the youth national team and get WNT, exposures. But we hope with the introduction of the under 23 program that there will be a better first step outside of the under 20s for players to progress and get the exposures and experiences. And of course, we're monitoring players across the NWSL, and I think this year will be a great opportunity for so many of those young players to get the regular playing minutes that you absolutely need if you want to be in contention for WNT.
With Girma and Neiswanger going over to England, what are the things that they're going to benefit most from? How will it help their game? And as part of that, how would you compare the league in England with NWSL, especially in terms of the level of play and the competitiveness in NWSL? Every game, you have no idea who's going to win.
Well, I think, as I've mentioned already, like it's a personal preference for players to take those decisions, and it's also the decision of the clubs if they choose to sell those players to European teams. And I think in the case of Jenna and Naomi going to Arsenal and Chelsea respectively, of course it is a competition that I know so well. The WSL in its own right has differences to that of the NWSL. But for me, the biggest difference isn't in the domestic competition, it will be in the Champions League. That's where I think the single biggest difference is. And from my own experiences, when you go and play teams like PSG, for example, like they're a team that might match up player for player everywhere. And then you go and play a team like Barcelona, whose positional game model is such where you might play without the ball. So the exposures you get to such different tactical ideas, for me, is the biggest difference, because while there are, of course, extremely competitive games in the NWSL, the Champions League offers something unique. But at the same time, I think we've got a great international pool of players in the NWSL which have evolved the league year on year from what I've seen. And I believe last year's play, I saw a lot of top quality matches that on any given day could rival any team in world football. And we should be proud of our league, because there's a lot of great qualities to it. But this is what happens when there's an investment in the women's game, worldwide. And I'm sure everybody can appreciate, it's every individual has a different need for that. Like, I think sometimes we focus too much on players departing our shores for England. I think of Jaden Shaw, going from San Diego to Carolina, or Lynn Williams from Gotham to Seattle, or Yasmin Raya going from Gotham to Houston Dash. We still have a lot of top level players that want to play in our league, and it also creates opportunities for that next generation of player. And seeing the impact that's had on, say, Ali Sentner in the last 12 months. And I hope that there'll be another glut of players that will get the necessary experiences that will help our national team. So I'm all for comparing, but not in all reality. I think there's very different landscapes, and both of them have their pluses and minuses, and we need to celebrate them both for their unique differences.
Okay. My second question is, in terms of your vision of what this team will be going forward, and how far along that path do you feel you are, and what kind of things are you looking to implement or see in this coming tournament? Thank you.
I think when you have Hive always says, I refer to it as doing things arse backwards. We have 75 days together, and then we had an Olympics. And then I had to do the job of developing a strategy and building a playing pool beyond sort of a select group of players. So I really feel like I've had a fair look on every player within the ecosystem that I think is immediately eligible for the WNT. And in fact, having analysed that, there's a clear realisation that there's a lot of players that are underdeveloped at the senior international level, because either the programming hasn't been there at the under 23 level, so there's been some missing years, or a lot of those players might not have had the level of exposures or experiences that either previous generations had, or counterparts from other nations. So we might have many players that top prospects, but not getting a lot of minutes in NWSL. So we've really, really got to close those gaps in the next 12 months. And I think some of that gap closing will be done in a combination of ways. Some we drip fed into the senior national team, but I want to be really clear that anyone playing for the seniors, you've got to be performing consistently at the highest level. But if not, and some of those players are not ready, we will have a full programming for our under 23 starting from April. And sometimes that program will be side by side with WNT. So when we're in LA, the under 23s will be in LA, and I'll be in a position to be able to watch both. And it's going to be such an important opportunity for me in particular to be able to see how our players are handling that, and not effectively saying, well, if I leave the 20s, I'm not making the seniors, it's the 23s. No, the 23s is an important opportunity to demonstrate you can deliver at the highest level against other international class quality. But this She Believes is also still a pre-season tournament. So I don't know where everybody will be within that. What I do know is that we need to be bold, and we need to take the necessary steps knowing that I might be putting players in situations that might not have the necessary experiences just yet. And sometimes we might have to go through that hard pain first before we come out the other side. So it's an exciting time, and one where I feel much better informed than I did, say, 6 months ago.
Thanks, Scotty. Let's go to Kaz. Go ahead, Kaz.
Hi, Emma. Thanks for your time. Switching gears a little bit towards the city of San Diego. With such a large presence of football soccer growing out here, obviously with the San Diego Wave being such a success, could you speak a little bit on how important it is to bring the international tournaments to San Diego and Snapdragon?
Oh, I mean, first of all, like I've said, and I haven't quite traveled 48 states, but I bet you I won't be far behind him. But San Diego is up there for me as one of the top places in the country for a myriad of reasons. Like you said, I think there is a soccer culture that is important for us to be in and around. One, two, it's an extremely diverse place, and one where the weather absolutely helps. And I think it would be good preparation for that. But also, I think it is important for our team to travel the depth and breadth of the country. You know, I don't want to be limited to just playing East Coast. I want us to be across the country so we can connect with our fans and build those relationships. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to. I'm looking forward to going to the San Diego Zoo on my day off. I've already got that planned. My son's going to SeaWorld because he's got that planned out, and I've been told there's an air and space museum that I should see, or he should see anyway. But I know that it's a beautiful place. I've been there a couple of times. I've actually done, when I was coaching in WPS, we had our combines down at Chula Vista. That's what I'm most looking forward to, is I think creating atmospheres. I've often said this, I want to create atmospheres all over the place that feel distinctly different with every town we're in. And sometimes I want to feel like we're not always the obvious home team when you play so many home games. And I know that that's really, really difficult to recreate almost everywhere, but creating an unfamiliarity for us is the best way for me to try and do that. And I think when you don't have a home stadium as a national team and you are traveling like we are, I know that the especially, I mean, we could talk about the game last year against Canada in the Gold Cup. Let's hope first of all we have better weather than that. But I think it's a stadium where the players have got some really strong experiences. So I hope to recreate that again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. We're going to go to Tony, and then we're going to go to Allison. Go ahead, Tony.
Hello, Emma. Thank you for your time. Tony Sanchez, San Diego
I'm
Football.
Sorry, go ahead, Tony.
Yes, thank you. Just want to go ahead and get your thoughts on just the intentionality of scouting in leagues outside of the top leagues, the traditional European or the NWSL. What's the intentionality in keeping track of those players that are making the jump over to Liga MX Femenil in Mexico? And are you looking to develop those as you did and you picked off Mia Fischel in your time in Chelsea from Tigres Femenil? What's that process like?
Yeah, absolutely. We monitor and scout players all over the world that could represent our country. So yes, is the quick answer to that. But as I always say, you're so extremely competitive to make the WNT. And you might have some, let's say, overaged players, over 23s who are playing outside of the US and also may not have been within the national team setup. Maybe sometimes not at all, sometimes from when they were youth players. It's challenging to pick a roster for and satisfy the demands for every single player across that ecosystem. But Mia Fisher is a good example of a player who did really well, Mexican leagues, traveled to England. Unfortunately, has developed an injury that has seen her out. But without that experience, I doubt she'd have made it to Chelsea. And being at Chelsea means she's got the exposures that giving her the Champions League experience, for example, and of course makes someone like me a good example of someone who is definitely on the radar of the senior W national team program. I think for me, the only thing I would have liked a little more of in the futures, in the last camp was, the futures was quite limited to an under 23 age group. In my ideal world, it could have been open aged, and I could have taken maybe a few more players that have not been in the system, but that's not to be the case. And my message is always pretty simple. You need to keep producing those performances. And even if you are having good seasons, wherever you are, know that we are watching and keep doing it. And you never know, those opportunities may present themselves for you.
Thanks, Tony. Go ahead, Todd.
Emma, in the short time you had to get ready before the Olympics, you made some roster changes and some lineup changes in style of play. Now that you have more time moving forward with the national team, like in your opinion, what does the best version of the team look like on the field? And what are some areas you're really focusing where you say, hey, this team, even though we won gold, we can get better and look different in these areas?
I always equate to what I do is my job is to put the framework in place, right? I want the bricks and the mortar to be solid across however many players come into our interactions. So in our world, it's players understanding what the principles of play are for us at the US Women's National Team, which I think the last 6 months has been about really drilling that. I can't say basic level. There's you have to do it from a defensive perspective. You have to do it from an attacking perspective. So I think getting probably close to about 40 plus players, understanding that at a level where we can go to the next step is where we are right now. The next phase is, okay, how are we going to be more, now everybody understands that framework and understands how to switch between it in situations. Now, how do we coach that next layer of detail in whatever capacity that might be? So that whether that's, developing our play even better when we're playing against teams that match up against us player for player, or developing an even bigger and better understanding of how we break down teams that sit in low and congested blocks, something we face quite a fair bit. And I think we've been having a lot of really good technical calls this month in and around what our tactical objectives will be for this, I'd say up until July. And they're very clear for us. Now it's about how do we develop it intentionally with the very limited time we have on the training pitch, plus give opportunities to playing time for still an extended pool. Because listen, this isn't just about She Believes. This is about competing to win a World Cup. So I have to give the players the exposures and the experiences, but no, it's unlike some players I might have been working with for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. They know it inside and out. Some players might be experiencing that for the second time or the third time. Some maybe more than that. And I think we are still in a period of development, and one where I still think it will still be a little bit up and down, but I think we can be even more laser focused around getting the desired outcomes from those tactical objectives in this block, knowing we do have the bricks and mortars in place. Now we've got to put a bit of furniture in the house.
Thank you.
Emma's been many things in her media. She's been a surgeon, a bricklayer, all sorts of things.
If you listen, everyone likes the analogies because at least then it's a reference that we don't have to know football inside and out to know that.
There we go. All right, we'll finish up with Allison. Go ahead, Allison.
Thank you so much. Emma, where do you think Naomi Girma's place in history can be by the time her career is done?
Oh, wow. I already feel like I did her a little bit of a disservice by placing so much pressure on her. With one of the things I said about her after the game, I was so excited by a combination of performances. I was so wowed by what she did. I think I put an enormous amount of pressure on her by telling everyone she was the best defender I'd ever seen. So I want to wind my neck back in for Naomi's sake more than anybody else to say, beyond the million of standout qualities she has, humility and hard work, as well as having the best smile on the planet being central to who she is. I think this is an important next step in her development because, like I said before, when you're playing in the Champions League and you have to deal with threats that are probably similar to international football in many ways, then I think it's a chance for her to extend not just the qualities and the experiences she's developing internationally, but be able to do it on a more regular basis and develop her leadership and develop it outside of her comfort zone. I think it's great to see a defender get the recognition for once. And I've coached some amazing defenders. And in fact, she's going to play with one of the best defenders I've ever coached in Millie Bright, who I think will teach her things that could be the next layer for her in terms of running a line, in terms of communicating from back to front in a way which is like Millie Bright's probably the best I've ever coached at that. So I think measuring where someone ends up goes beyond just, I don't know, those individual accolades. I am excited to see the tactical and leadership developments in Naomi in this period. And I think she can be anything that she wants to be. But most of all, I want to make she does it without me piling any more pressure on her.
Well said.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Nay.